Welcome to Pop Up to Powerhouse, the podcast where side hustles turn pro. Here, we're pulling back the curtain on what it takes to build a standout, profitable brand in the event industry. From pricing with confidence to landing luxury clients, I'm sharing the wins, the setbacks, and everything in between, so you can turn your passion into a powerhouse business. Hey friends, welcome to Pop Up to Powerhouse. I am your host, Jamie Taylor, and I feel like it's just crazy that I'm saying that. This idea for the podcast has been living in my head for far too long, and I'm just super excited that we're finally taking action and moving forward on this. It took a while to kind of think exactly about what I was trying to do with this podcast. So my goal with the podcast was really to pull back the curtains of what it really looks like inside of the event industry. So I've been in the balloon and event industry in the Seattle area for 8 years now. And I just feel like, we kind of see what people are doing online, but there's really no outlet or place for people to really hear other stories about what it takes to build an iconic brand in the event industry. And so that's exactly what we're going to be doing here, pulling back the curtains. We're going to talk about the highs. We're going to talk about the lows of being in the event industry. And my hope throughout this podcast journey is that when you guys tune in, you're going to get a little bit of motivation. I hope that you're going to get confidence in what you're doing and what you're building. But more importantly, I want you to get the tools that you need to go to that next level. And just know that there's other people out here that are cheering you on, other people that have done it. They're going to be on this podcast and they're going to share what they've gone through to get to where they're at so that we can help you. All right, so let's just jump right in. It seems only fitting for the very first episode to just give you a little bit of background into who I am and my journey and what I've created over the last 8 years. All right, so let's jump into it. Today, it just seems fitting to talk to you about my pop-up journey and my story of how I started out and how I created a powerhouse brand. So whenever people ask me, like, how did you get into the event industry? I always tell people, I don't ever feel like I chose balloons. I feel like balloons chose me. So when I started 8 years ago, I started out with an event planning business, but more of like a party in a box business. And that's a story for another day. But whenever people ask me how you got started in balloons, I always tell them, I don't really feel like I chose balloons. I feel like balloons chose me because it was never a part of the journey. So I had always known that I wanted to start a business. I just never knew what that thing was. But I would listen to other podcasts like How I Built This and just kind of hear other entrepreneurial stories because it was like, well, how did they get started and what did they do? And I was always really interested in that. And I remember a common theme in the podcast or in How I Built This was people kept saying like, oh, I don't know, it just like stumbled upon it or it just happened. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how does it just happen? That didn't make any sense to me. But it's funny because that's exactly what happened to me. So when I had started out with an event planning company, but I knew that I didn't really want to totally do event planning. My background is in interior design and I love designing and creating things. So I had started an event planning company and had my first party that I kind of did was for my niece's graduation party. And so this was 8 years ago. And I had just happened to stumble upon on Pinterest these little balloon garlands that I had never seen before. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, let me see if I can figure out how to make this. So I remember ordering the balloons. And at that time, it came like with the strips with the holes. And I know they still make those. I can't believe that people are making balloon garlands with that still. And you put the balloons through them individually. So that was my first balloon garland that I had done. And I had hung it up and posted it on Instagram. So prior to this, just to show you, like when I started my business, I was super confident that I was going to easily replace my salary of my job that I had had. And so I quit and jumped into it full time, thinking that this is easy. I got this, which I just kind of laugh at now because it's not as easy as people think, but it is. It's just kind of funny. Anyway, so I had quit my job, jumped full into this. And so when I had done the installation for my niece and had done the balloon garland, I had posted it and somebody commented and said, hey, how much would you charge to do something like that? well, I had just quit my job, so I was desperate to make cash. I really didn't care like where it came from. And so I said, sure, and went and did the install. I had zero idea how to price it, 100% underpriced on this installation, but you're learning and you're getting started. And that's literally how it started. I did one and then posted it, then did another and posted it. And I feel like it was really catching steam because nobody else was really doing it in my area. There was still a lot of like very traditional balloon columns and arches, but nobody was really doing organic balloon installations. And so that side of the business just really took off it felt like without even really trying. And I was still trying to get this like party box and like event planning business going. And that had never really fully taken off. So the balloon side of the business literally blew up, like pun intended. It was like hard to keep up. We're definitely like one of the first people to really start doing that in our area. And the party box side / event planning side wasn't really taking off. And that was my first really big key takeaway when I started a business was I had this idea and this thought of what my business was going to be. And I was being asked and called to do something else. And so that's the first takeaway in business is you might have a plan and an idea, but you have to go where the momentum flows. Like you have to kind of just take the opportunities that come. Because I can't even imagine how I said like, no, that's not what I do. I wouldn't be here today. And I wouldn't have done some of the amazing things that I've gotten to do had I chose not to just kind of pivot a little bit. Quick timeout. If you've been nodding along during this episode, then you are the type of person that we love having in our community. The best way to stay connected is by joining our email list. It's where we get to share a little bit more of behind-the-scenes magic, stories that I don't always get to share on the podcast, early access to special announcements, and ways to be part of the conversation with other listeners who care about the same things as you do. We'd love for you to be a part of it, so just head to thejamietaylor.com/email and drop your email in. No spam, just real connections and good stuff. So in the beginning of doing balloons, I was just happy to do anything and everything that people were asking me to do. And I really started kind of diving into balloon garlands and just researching on Instagram and links that the amount of businesses doing it were not what it is today. And at that time, I ended up stumbling upon Geronimo Balloons, who's probably still the OG. She's my favorite. She no longer does it anymore, but she was one of my favorites and one of my first inspirations of really seeing like how you can take balloons and make them into art. And the other people I followed was Poppies for Grace out of Australia. So they were the first two people that I was really kind of watching. And then Zim Balloons, also don't think they're doing it anymore either. But he was somebody that I was able to kind of message on Instagram and kind of get some insights on. And I would ask questions, and he was super nice about just having a conversation with me. But those were the first three where I was like, oh, like this is more than just like putting up balloons for a party. Like you could really create art with balloons. And if you haven't seen Geronimo Balloons, I suggest you go look her up because her work is still to this day stunning and amazing. And I think she stopped pre-COVID. But the moment I saw her installations, that was the moment I was like, I want to go bigger. I want to do more. And that's when I really started pushing myself more as a balloon artist when clients would come and ask me to do installations. So for a little while, I kind of struggled like, where do I fit and what type of balloon artist did I want to be? And what I knew was that I didn't want to do the same installations over and over again. Like I crave uniqueness. I crave them looking different. I always joke that I make installations harder on myself, not my clients, because I'm trying to figure out like how to do better this next time, or how can I make this different? How can this be something that nobody else has seen before? And so that's how I try to approach a majority of all of my installations. And I feel like once I really honed in on my craft and the skill, that is when everything changed for me. So to me, like luxury balloon installations don't necessarily need to mean like big and large and over the top. I've seen plenty of like smaller balloon installations that I would still call them luxury. And to me, luxury balloon installations come down to a couple of things. It comes down to design, movement, texture. Like, does it even have a design? Does it have a shape? And what type of textures? Are you using other mediums? Those are the things that make a garland in balloons go from like a kid's party to something a little bit more luxury that somebody's going to want to have at their wedding or their corporate event or their bridal shower. To me, good artists, it's all in the detail work that they do. So when I started out, I was very professional from day one, like had a business license, had a website. I always accepted Stripe. I never really did Venmo. But where I wasn't the most business savvy was with the types of balloons that I had purchased. So I had naturally gone to Party City. I didn't know where else to go and got their balloons. And literally after the very first install, I was like, I cannot use these. Like, there has to be a better option and a better way. And that's when I ended up getting my reseller's permit and buying more quality balloons, because that is the key to good balloon design, is the balloons that you're using. So I attribute my growth in the event industry to two things. So one is that I did a ton of free installations to begin with, just to get my name out there. And I attribute a lot to that. I found really good partnerships that helped me get my name out there, and really were good collaborations, which is definitely a podcast we're going to talk about in the future, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with how to really manage like collaborations to their benefit. Number two, I would say, is definitely my designs. Just like I talked about earlier, it really becomes, I feel like, especially what we're creating is so Instagrammable, that if you can create an impact, like something that nobody has ever seen, it's super unique, like that's where you're going to get people like stopping, looking, interested in what you're creating. And that's how you're really going to draw and attract the clients that you want. And I attribute a lot of that to my success. I was very strategic about my designs and what I wanted it to look like. And I think naturally I attracted the type of clients I wanted to have and wanted to work with. And I've been incredibly blessed, for the most part, to work with, I think, the most amazing customers. So, and many of them I still do business with year after year after year, like talk about pre-baby, and now they have kids, and then other events that they're doing. So it's just fun to really be a part of people's lives and journeys throughout my business and throughout theirs. Quick pause before we jump back in. If you haven't downloaded my free guide yet, you're seriously missing out. If you're ready to stop undercharging and book those premium clients that you dream about, I made something just for you. It's my free Charge Your Worth guide. Inside, I'll walk you through the exact mindset shifts you're going to need and real strategies to move from side hustle to powerhouse brand. Download it for free at thejamietaylor.com/free guide and take the first step in building the brand and creative business that you deserve. So if you're just starting out, just know that large installations don't just start overnight. I see that with so many people, that you start kind of comparing maybe with other people who've been in the industry for a really long time. And it's like, how did they get there? How did they do these big installs? Well, they didn't start there. They started small. So just know that if you're starting like there, that's where everybody started, and you have the opportunity to grow into bigger installations. Because you have to make a name for yourself, and you have to grow into it, and people have to see what you're capable of. But eventually it will come if you allow the time to bloom and blossom. I feel like a really big turning point for me in my business was when I stopped undervaluing the work that I was doing because of the medium that I was using. So naturally, balloons don't cost a lot of money. So when you're starting out, it kind of seems weird to charge too much, but you really undervalue like your time and the labor that goes into creating these things. So for me, the shift really happened when I really started valuing myself as a balloon artist and started charging like it. Okay, so it's like anything in life, right? Like if you are shopping for something and it's either on a discount or it's not that expensive, your natural question is whether or not it's a good enough product. And balloons is no different. So if you're trying to get the luxury clients or corporate clients, you have to price appropriately so that they can feel as if they can trust what you're doing and your output. If you're underpricing, they're going to question whether or not you're capable of providing the installation that they're looking for. So once you start valuing your time and you've really locked in your skill and your design, the rest will fall into place. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of end this episode with 5 lessons that I feel like I've learned over the last 8 years being in this industry. And number 1 is nothing good happens overnight. Success is not overnight, despite what you're seeing on social media. Most good things that are worth anything take time. There are plenty of people out there that are not that good, but their businesses are doing well because they've stayed consistent and they've stayed in the game. So just stay in it, continue to take action, and just keep moving forward day after day. Okay, so number 2 is a little bit cliche, but if they build it, they will come. So what I mean by that is sometimes you have to create first in order to get the clients. That's how I feel like I grew my business, was you have to show people what you're capable of for them to actually start asking you. If you don't show them, then they don't even think to ask you for it. So if there's something new that you're wanting to do or something that you're wanting to show, start doing that and people will start asking you for it. Number 3 might be a little controversial, but I think it's just like the Starbucks, right? Like make one good cup of coffee. Like that's what their focus was. So when you're starting out, focus on getting really good at one thing. And then eventually you can add on and do more things, but get really good and known for one thing. Number 4, if you don't value your work, nobody else will either. Okay, and number 5 is slow times are always going to come. Once I learned what the seasons were in the event industry, because there are always lulls and slow times, if you keep a list of all of the things that you want to work on, whether it's marketing or just back end stuff that you don't have time for when you are busy, keep a list of what that is. And then when the slow times come, you go to that and start working on that instead of sitting in silence and panicking and feeling like everybody else is doing installs, but you aren't, which it's not true. It's just everything kind of goes in different waves. And I have started to look at those times as a blessing because you sometimes need those because you can literally burn yourself out if all you're doing is installing all the time. Okay, so this last one is actually a bonus, but I had picked this up somewhere else. I'm not sure where, but it is keep a badass list. And I started keeping this list when times really felt tough for me and I was really feeling burnt out. But it was a list of all of the badass things that I've done. And that anytime you're like, is this worth it? Why am I doing this? You go back and you read over that list, all the things that you've done and you accomplished. And the very first one that should be on your list is the fact that you started a business, because only about 7% of the population actually even tries to start a business. So right there, that's pretty badass. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pop Up to Powerhouse. If you're still tuning in, I really appreciate you taking the time to share the last 20 minutes with me. I know that we're all so busy, so I hope that you've gained some insight or some motivation to kind of keep you going in this industry as we go into Q4, because it's going to get busy. All right, so coming up next week, we're going to talk about the 3 big mistakes that are keeping you stuck in small jobs. And if you're ready to jump to the next level, stay tuned for Luxury Balloon Academy, which will be launching soon. Now, a quick ask. I want to keep bringing you these free educational podcasts so that you can build the event business that you want. You can make that possible by simply sharing this episode with your friend, following us on your favorite platform, and leaving us a review. It takes just a moment, and it makes sure that I can keep bringing you the best quality content so that you can go from pop-up to powerhouse.